So you touched on this earlier, but how is EU's call for a new world order? I loved that they actually said that. That to me, how is that Orwellian?
Yeah, I just got back from Berlin at the World Forum, and there were two of us that were free speech advocates, and it was certainly the largest collection of anti-free speech groups and figures I've seen in years. And largely they had gathered because of Vance's Munich speech, which I supported. I believe that Vance is right. I mean, you had, Kennedy go to Germany and to say that he's a Berliner. And that was important, to tell people behind the Iron Curtain that we all stand with you because we're human beings like you. What Vance did is say, I am an American, and as an American, I believe in free speech. And if you want to be defenders of democracy, then you have to stop limiting the speech of others. You have to fight for the things that we believed were the basis of this Western civilization, particularly free expression. That set people off, and it was clear in Berlin. The greatest threat, in my view, to free speech I talk about in the book is the EU and the Digital Services Act. The Digital Services Act is reflective of a lot of the laws in EU countries that allow the censorship for information that is disinformation or malinformation or viewed as misinformation. Of course, the government defines all of those terms. Those are the same three categories the Biden administration said publicly they were targeting. Malinformation is actually my favorite because as defined by the Biden administration, malinformation are facts, true statements that are being used in a misleading way. So they were saying that they could censor people who were stating true things, but they were doing it in a way that the government viewed as misleading. And you see that in the Digital Services Act, but there was no coincidence that when the Twitter files were released and after Musk had purchased Twitter, now X, one of the first things that Hillary Clinton did and others is they went to the EU and said, use the DSA to force Musk to censor American citizens. That was an extraordinary moment. This is a former Democratic presidential candidate saying, you can force the censorship of fellow citizens in the United States. And the EU did exactly that. They warned Musk that he could be hit with confiscatory fines, even arrest. When Musk said he was going to interview Donald Trump, the head of their censorship efforts said, we're watching, and if you cross over, you could be facing consequences. That is an interview of Elon Musk, an American citizen, with a candidate for the American presidency who ultimately won the presidency, being warned by the EU that we're watching. The fact is that the anti-free speech movement has been successful in Europe to a degree that I never would have thought possible. They have eviscerated free speech. You had one judge, by the way, outside the EU, in Britain, which is horrific on free speech, but they were horrific back at the revolution. But they, in some ways, have gotten worse. And one judge upheld the conviction of some total Looney Tune. This older guy who was still living with his mom and had a room filled with Nazi and KKK stuff. It was like a temple to hate. And they didn't accuse him of distributing any of this material. They accused him of having it. And the judge said that I am convicting you because of your toxic ideology. Well, that sounds a lot like a thought crime. And very few people in England seem to blink at that. They seem to have any concern about that. That's how far we have come. So as Americans, we have to choose a path. We're at a crossroads. You can look to Europe, to what that road and where it has taken them. Or you can look at where we've been and where we need to go. We've got to hold the line right now. We're it. There are very few countries left that are supporting robust views of free speech. So this is it. Now, I happen to be optimistic, but it's a dangerous pretense. It's a dangerous illusion to believe that just because we have succeeded in the past, we'll succeed now. We have never seen anything like the DSA. We've never seen anything like this anti-free speech movement. This is an existential threat. And free speech groups that I met with in Germany are on the ropes. Many of them have been investigated just for defending people who have been subject to free speech prosecutions. We need to make sure that that wave breaks on these shores.